I have 4:32 on my watch. We try to start at 4:30. So if I could ask all the commissioners to have a seat and get started. For the record, this is a meeting of the Consolidated Commission on Utilities, the regular board meeting to address both Gpwa and Gpa issues for decision. And for the record, those present are myself, Commissioner Mchako, Commissioner Santos, and Commissioner Martinez. Everybody's here. We'll start with the approval of minutes. Do we have minutes? We do? No, we don't have minutes. No, there are no minutes. There are no minutes. No, we didn't. No, they're just a note type minute. We don't have. Okay, public comment. Before you get started, just a note, by the way, our viewing public is saying they're not always hearing us, so can you make an extra effort to speak into the microphone? Okay? Commissioners?
Thank you.
Dr. Ware.
Okay. Thank you for allowing me to turn. At the last meeting, there was going to be a meeting set up with your staff. This did not happen. Okay. Your secretary did contact me, and so that the communications to set this up were online, but no meeting happened. There have been a number of developments since the last meeting, and as you're aware, last time I overstayed my welcome a bit. I'll try to be a little shorter this time. The main point that I was unable to cover last time, and that is that there are charges that GPA puts on solar which are not reimbursed by the program as it's now set up. In the past, I think that was reasonable because you got your money and we got ours. But the $15 a month connection fee was not removed at the time that fees were changed. And since this connection benefits both parties, it seems reasonable to me to include that in any accumulation of return. You understand what I'm saying?
I'm not sure which charge you're talking about. If it's the $15 customer charge.
That's a connection fee.
There's a $15 connection fee that's charged how often? A one-time charge?
And
is that a one-time charge, Dr. Ware,
no,
that you're aware?
it's a monthly. And
not aware.
I think that may be a reasonable charge, but if I give you more than $15 worth of power that month, it seems to me that that should apply to that. And as I mentioned last time, GPA is very aggressive about customers who steal power from them. And yet, in this case, basically, you're charging me for the privilege of stealing my power. So that, I think this can be easily fixed, but it's a sore point. Since our last meeting here, GPA has had several public meetings. In looking at these proposals, I can see where batteries may be needed by GPA, but since GPA has no control over the private batteries, I don't think this is going to solve your problems. GPA needs to have a big enough battery backup system and a good computer system that allows them to adjust power appropriately. And I don't see how having private individuals having batteries is going to solve that. So maybe you know something that I don't, but I think if you stop and think about it, you'll see that that's the case. Finally, I would urge you to listen to my testimony before the board this last month. Basically, if you look at the future, and I think the future is becoming increasingly clear, Guam is going to be going more and more electric, which means GPA has to have more and more power to satisfy the needs of its customers. You can finance that yourself, or you can get your customers to help finance it. And if I were in business and somebody would finance it for me, I might think about letting them do it. I think there are also solutions. I mentioned in this testimony that we have 100,000 vehicles on the road now. I think in 10 or 15 years, probably 3/4 of those at least are going to be electric. There are mechanisms for the batteries in cars to be hooked up to the grid both ways. And I would urge you to look at Santiago, Chile, who apparently has begun to look into this and may actually have a system in place. I understand there are also some places in Scandinavia. This seems to me a much more reasonable solution. You can sell batteries to people in cars, but it's going to be a lot harder to sell them for a fixed power source that really has only one reason for being, and that is to cover you when GPA doesn't. And this last month, in fact, the same night that I was at the meeting this last time, my wife informed me that we had 3 to 4 hours of power outage at my house. And we have intermittent power outages almost every month in Santa Rita. So thank you for your time. And like I say, I appreciate your indulgence.
Okay, Commissioner Sanchez.
Sure, John, can you make sure we have that meeting that was requested set up so that, this is a difficult forum in which to get into the many issues he's talked about and he's had questions about. I know there was an attempt to try to set up that meeting. It hasn't been successful yet, but, can you and the team renew your efforts to try to set up that's all.
Sorry,
Thank you, Dr.
I think Dr. Weir was in all the public hearings that we were attending this past week, no?
Right, but the last month we said we would, and there was an attempt actually to set up a meeting.
Understood. I'm just saying, it has been very busy time, and I will try and make an arrangement to meet with him. No? That's all.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Miguel, you're up to bat.
Oh, time to go.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have no changes to the GM report, so if we can, we'll move straight to the resolutions.
Sure.
The first resolution that there's one joint resolution that GPA is taking, that's 15 FY 2021, so we'll move to 17 FY 2021. This is a resolution where we seek authorization for another joint resolution for GPA and GWA to receive authority from the board to receive payments from the Guam Solid Waste Authority at GPWA facilities. As discussed at the work session, we have a resolution from the GSWA board authorizing this, and we also have a draft memorandum of agreement, which would outline the terms and conditions under which we would receive payments on behalf of GSWA, and it would also provide for the limitations on liability, that there be no commingling of funds, and that there be a recovery of costs for providing that service to GSWA. So the resolution has been drafted, and the GSWA resolution and the draft MOA are included as exhibits. I think
Okay, Miguel, just for clarity's sake, the initial reach out from Guam Solid Waste to both Guam Waterworks and Guam Power Authority was a resolution to allow Guam Solid Waste to participate in a procurement of merchant services. That was the original resolution that was put before us. And at that time, that's when I said, is there a board resolution authorizing Guam Solid Waste to participate in this procurement? And so that's the board resolution that I was looking for, because that's the first thing that we were asked. Where are we on that resolution?
That was also submitted for the procurement, and I believe that GPA will be presenting that.
So GPA is presenting that joint resolution.
Right.
So that actually is the first resolution.
And if I may,
Sure.
just kind of as some background, back in January, I believe both GPA and GWA received a letter from Guam Solid Waste asking about the collections, the possibility of the two agencies receiving their collections. At the time that we were having those discussions, they found out that we were in the process of going out to bid for the merchant services.
Okay.
And had asked if they could participate, because they were similarly planning a procurement, and they thought that if we could, they would be
A better deal. No problem.
right. And so they actually did ask for to participate, or they had requested that they work with us so that came to the board.
Okay, and it should have come for, I'm just saying, that's the one that was first.
Right.
Now, I'm a big key of words that we used. I want to be very careful that we use the right words. The resolution I see before me is to allow Guam Waterworks or Guam Power Authority to accept payments for Guam Solid Waste, not collection. Collection's a different matter. Every month you tell us about your collection rate. Are you 98%, 99%? So we're not talking about collection, right? Okay, the resolution strictly addresses payment. Okay, I had asked at that time, I said I wasn't really sure this was a good idea or that we even had the authority to do that. So I asked Kelly Clark to give us an opinion as to whether we had the authority to do this. So Kelly, where are we?
Under our enabling statute, there isn't any
Okay,
prohibition or
authority. Okay,
allowance to do that. So it basically boils down to a business decision.
okay. And what else did you?
Well, I spoke with several of our executive management. Some of the issues that might arise would be
the inability of our customer service to be able to view the customer's solid waste bill and answer the questions while the activity was happening. Wouldn't be able to determine solid waste account balances or any other particular account matters. Customer service would only be able to take payment if the customer had a payment coupon in hand with the account information and the amount owed. One issue that might arise is whether the payment coupon presented at that time reflects the actual current state of that customer's solid waste account. If the customer only has a credit card or a debit card with them at the time of payment, GPWA customer service would not be able to accept payment for solid waste. So just cash and check. And any other issues, I don't know, you might, if anybody else thought of any, but those are just three that came up.
Okay. Before you talk, Commissioner Sanchez, let me just ask a question. Now, the enabling statute doesn't authorize us to do this,
It
correct?
is not. It's not in furtherance of our
Okay.
mission of providing water and wastewater services.
And I heard you say that there's no prohibition against doing it,
prohibition.
but it doesn't allow us, it doesn't authorize us to do it. What does our current enabling legislation say?
I'm sorry?
What does our current enabling legislation say? Because I think they mirror.
It's in furtherance of providing water and wastewater services to our customers. Whatever powers those would be.
To do that.
And that's, buying services, buying materials, bonds, whatever those kind of things are. But accepting payment for another entity wouldn't be one of those.
Okay, and I just want to point out, I have some serious concerns here, because I'm not aware that the customers of Guam Solid Waste are having a hard time finding a place to pay, to make payment. And everything I've read in the media from the leaders of our government has talked about universal garbage collection and a way to collect and to enforce that universal garbage collection. In fact, in today's PDN paper, I read the governor was quoted as saying, well, maybe they can just bill the solid waste bill along with on the same bill with the waterworks bill or the power bill. And I think really the problem that is there is getting people to sign up for this service so that we can stop trashing the island, which I agree is a good goal. But there's a lack of a hammer to enforce this, to get people to sign up, and once they've signed up, to get them to pay. Because if they don't make a payment, there's really nothing that is real adverse. So you can pick up the garbage can if you want and deny them service. But that only promotes, again, throwing the trash all over the island. I'm just afraid that what is being sought here is really not a place to make payment, but rather a way to try and find a way to get universal, because that's all that's been said in the media, universal garbage collection, which I think is important, but I don't think this is going to accomplish it. So those are my points, and let's discuss further. Commissioner Sanchez.
Thanks, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Kelly. So as a model, I talked with Bank Pacific, because Bank Pacific receives power payments, water payments, and solid waste payments. And my interpretation of the proposal from management is that we simply are adding another place where a ratepayer of trash can go to, like a bank or FDN or Upper Tumon, just to make a payment, right? They can walk in with a separate check, GSWA, it can be accepted, and if management's saying the cashiers can handle it, I mean, that to me, I'm assuming that's what you're saying, because you guys are recommending that we add this service. But and you've raised a good point, we've talked about it. This is not a matter of commingling billing. This is a matter of just receiving a ratepayer's payment. Right now, when you go to FDN and you pay your GWA bill, it's a separate bill from GPA. This is just a third bill, it's the GSWA bill. And I appreciate council's guidance that it's not it's not authorized, but it's not prohibited. I mean, you can make a case it's not in our core business, which it isn't, but, you know, if we want to help out GSWA for a fee, I think there's a proposal that we get paid a fee, and to make it easier for ratepayers of all government utilities to find a place to pay. I'm generally okay with that. I mean, that's just my personal view. So I'm okay with that. And I think council brought up some good points, but if downstairs receives $30.38 with a GSWA invoice, and a $43 GWA invoice, and a now you know how much I'm paying, and a $280 for GPA invoice, our cashiers can handle multiple payments with multiple invoices. And I think as long as those rules are established, because Bank Pacific and GP and GWA are no different at night. They just reconcile payments received from all these people for GSWA, GPA, and GWA, and they send them the money. So it's really just an accounting and cashier management process that adds some convenience to a GSWA ratepayer who also wants to pay that bill when they're paying their power or water. So in terms of making it more convenient for ratepayers to pay, I'm okay with the proposal. My understanding is that we're going to charge a fee, so it's not free, and I'm okay with that. And notwithstanding council's guidance that it's not prohibited, it's not authorized, but it's not prohibited. So we got two management teams saying that they would like to offer that service and asking our permission. I'm generally okay because I think the chair, and we discussed this at prior meetings, we raised other concerns. This is not a commingling of billing. This is not, we're billing on their behalf. This is just cashier payments. Just like if you went to a bank, we're just going to be a cashier recipient down below. And the accounting is very straight. Talon, correct me if I'm wrong, the accounting for this would be very straightforward. You have all the invoices for GSWA, you take all the cash payments, whatever the source, and you deal with it. Now, I think Kelly has brought up a good concern about the credit card piece. But even that, if I only make a partial payment, if I make a partial payment on a GWA bill now with my credit card, accounting and cashiers can manage that, right? If I only pay $30 instead of $36 and I put up my credit card, you know to only collect $30 from my credit card, that's all you're gonna get, and you know how to account for that. Are you and John, is your team comfortable with handling all of that logistics of, basically you're just another cashier for GSWA. It's not the deeper issues that the chair is alluding to that we would all be concerned about. We're just being a cashier, and when I talk to Bank Pacific, they get loan payments, they get utility payments. They can process it. You know, and last I checked, they got 2 legs, 2 arms. You know, they're as capable as we are, and vice versa. So I'm okay with the concept as long as it's limited to accepting payments on behalf. You guys got to worry about if I don't have an invoice, do you accept the payment? Or because I think council's right, you got to have something, and you got to have something that has an account number and a name that says this is Simon's bill.
Okay.
All right, and so I'm comfortable with the proposal of both managers, as long as you guys are nodding your head that says we can handle the accounting, the separation, and there is no commingling of funds. There's commingling of cash down below at the cashier, but that's what reconciliation at night is all about. Right?
Okay. I'm going to give the management and their staff a chance to answer all those concerns later on, but Commissioner Limchalco, you have a question or concern.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So in the ideal situation, a customer that knows what he's doing comes into the office, has their bill and says, I want to pay for this. Here it is, right? What happens when they don't? What happens when they don't know their account number? What happens when somebody else is coming in to pay the bill? What do you tell them? Are you able to look up the information? Are you able to tell them, look up their GSWA account information and tell them how much they owe? So what happens to the customer then? What do you end up telling them? We can't help you? See, there's got to be a solution to that issue, I think, before this is implemented, because you're going to get irate customers and they're going to walk away with basically the belief that GWA or GWA can't help them. They don't know what they're doing. They can't look up my information. I mean, the expectation is there But if someone comes in to pay their bill, you're gonna be able to look up their account information. From what I understand, you guys don't have that capability, right, for GSWA? Well, can you?
I think what's gonna have to happen is we're gonna have to establish.
We don't want to, right?
Yeah. I think we're gonna have to establish an MOU which addresses a lot of these other concerns moving forward. So, again, that's, but collecting, and just like we used to just have Gpwa, not collecting for GWA. Of course, now because we are in the same financial system, we can determine what is. But even before, we always had required that they have a bill. So again, there had to be more, terms and conditions and different things that have to be addressed with GWS. But still, again, is the policy. Can we go ahead and do something like this? That's all, and then we will try and work out the details and all of this.
Commissioner Chapa, go ahead.
So in effect, we're just establishing another point of payment to accept
That's all it
payment?
is. That's the bank.
But is that the root, is that the root problem to GSWA, that they don't
No,
have enough ways to pay?
Yeah, we're not into their group problem.
Yeah, so, but
Commissioner.
the MOU doesn't really, the MOU that we have in the resolution doesn't really explain what the root problem that they're facing.
Yeah.
And so if it's just adding another point of payment, does that really solve what their issues are?
It does.
Because if they can pay at the bank, where else can they pay besides GSWA? Just Bank Pacific?
No. Coast 360? Coast 360?
They have an online, they have an online system to pay by credit card, right?
If you look into WA resolution, they talk about how the bank fees have doubled at a particular bank. It's my understanding that they're considering stopping the collection at that particular bank and that therefore looking for alternate locations to accept.
Okay, but they have the GSWA board has a rate, they're a rate setting policy, or they go through the PUC as well, right? So if it's just a question of the cost to do business is more, don't they just roll that into their rate rather than pass it along? You're gonna be charging them the same thing they're paying now, right? But have you done the analysis to see whether or not what you've accounted for really does cover your cost? Because how are you, what number are you using to forecast the revenue? How many payments are you anticipating receiving or processing here?
The original calculation was based on
50,
50 payments. And
receiving 50 payments? $50
a week.
a week? So you're gonna charge them 50, so the utility is gonna have a revenue increase in fees of $50 a week to do this?
So we did an analysis and determined that the cost to GWA is just under $1 and the cost to GPA is slightly more. So what we would do is want to negotiate a rate that fully covers them.
So does that, I'm just, just thinking as we go, my line of questioning. So GWA and GWA processing 50 additional payments for GSWA a week is going to solve their issues?
So I think, again, there's some additional place.
Yeah, I believe that's all, if I may. I believe that's all this is. It's just receiving a transaction just like in the banks. They receive our transaction at a certain rate. You have to have the invoice or something that we can accept it for, and then we provide it. Yes, you are correct. It doesn't solve a lot of the issues that that is being addressed. But all we're doing is accommodating, and again, yes, it's $50, right? But we already owe fixed costs anyway, so $50 is just that. That's all.
Yeah, I'm just trying to really
$50 doesn't
understand.
really increase our costs for someone being in that line, no? Especially if they're there to pay power, pay water at the same time.
No, I completely understand the intent of what you're trying to do. You're trying to help out the other utility. I get that, and I'm all for that. But I'm just trying to understand, is that are you really solving an issue? Because you're saying the bank rates are increasing, so they're gonna divert all the payments to other than the banks, but the end result is 50 transactions a week. So where are all the other transactions? It can't just be 50 transactions a week that are being processed by the banks. It's got to be significantly higher than that. Because if you're really...
Commissioner Santos, you want to say something?
You know, I think moving forward, we're a government. We're a government entity, okay? Our role here is to help serve a ratepayer, okay? Obviously, it's not power, it's not water, it's not sewer. It just happens to be trash this time around. I think what's happening here, colleagues, is that I think this is a stepping stone to this universal collection that we're all being left out in the discussion, right? I've asked again, we kind of need to know what exactly the governor means when she says, I like to do universal, trash billing, something with a known agency. And I said, how's this supposed to work when you're not talking to anybody? I mean, I've asked the two GMs here and it's silence. So if we agree today to do this, do we have an out clause?
We don't have to sign.
No. I'm not opposed to helping a utility. I get that part. That's our role, Miguel. Okay, we're here to help because we're the government of Guam. We're not, Macy's or somewhere else. We don't have a sign that says we refuse service because you may not pay us. Can't do that. So all I want is that if this doesn't work as planned or whatever you want to call it, then we need an out clause. We want out. Okay, if it doesn't work, because I'm not sure what, like Commissioner Taco, 50 a week?
If you're looking for an out clause before we get started.
No. Out clause when we are in there and you just kind of look at us and.
Built in for us to review the MOA annually, and then at that point we can make a decision.
Well, no, if you want a trial period, 1 year is not going to work for us. There's got to be a point where either we get 50 a week or whatever the case is, or 5,000. Honestly, I don't know.
It's got to be more than 50.
Yeah, there's 30, I believe there's 30,000 customers. Yeah.
I think it's only like 20,000.
So all I'm trying to do is, if we want to enter into this agreement, I think there's a general consensus that we do want to help. But if it doesn't seem to work to our liking, or your liking, because you're the one that's going to do the work,
So
then we need an out clause. We need to say, thank you very much, 30 days, go somewhere else.
The resolution allows us to set the terms and conditions under which we will proceed in the MOA. So all we have to do is build that into the MOA, and then it's there.
We need an out clause.
Okay.
So if
can't see how
it's
this
the
is
board's
gonna work.
direction that be specifically stated in the resolution, we can amend it, the resolution to provide for that, or if you just say, direct us that, make sure you have an out clause, we'll build it into the MOA, and that should be enough.
That's okay for me.
Okay. Commissioner Pedro Martinez, you had this question.
My question is, is this going to be an accounting entry in the books? No. So the money received in that day is just...
Deposited that evening at the bank. It'll go with the
so there's no recording at all. And so the disbursement also at the same time, you're going to write a check? And
We would have, so at the end of the day, would have it would be three deposits, one for GWA, one for GPA, one for Subsidies, and then the honor department taking. So we would not enter anything.
okay. The other question is, so how do we handle NSF, the checks that...
They do. GSWA
The
does.
checks would be made to solid waste, it would go into their account, and they would have to collect it if the.
Okay, and so next month, here comes that same person, and would we get a listing of those people that are supposedly already on the bad checklist. I mean, they come in and say, come here because they just take your check.
I suppose that's one of the things they want to include.
But we're not at risk for a bad check written to GSW.
No, I understand that, but it's the process of providing that service, but yet we also have to be aware of everybody here. It's not a big amount, and I also agree that this is something that is good for the public, but I think, if anything, on that MOU, I think that should be drafted, and I just like to recommend maybe give it to the commissioners, and before anything is approved, let's see if everything is presentable there. You know.
I've already provided a draft to the AG's office for this, the attorney that's handling just give it a draft to look at, but I haven't received it.
Yeah. Okay. Commissioner Untitled.
Okay,
Just
thank you.
follow up.
These are great questions, Commissioner. Walk me through how GSWA reconciles their deposit. You have a payment stub of some sort with the collection. So basically, if it gets deposited, how does GSWA post the payment?
So what happens is, we've already had some preliminary discussions with our software developer, and they would update the software so as we receive the payments from GSA customers, it would be included as part of the reports that are generated at the end of the day. We would have basically a report that tells us how much was collected for Guam Waterworks, how much was collected for Guam Power, and how much was collected for Guam Solid Waste. There would be 3 deposits there, and it would go into the armored car would pick it up and take it.
So what does GSWA get to update their system to post the payment?
So in the morning, they would get a report that shows what was collected
And deposited.
and deposited, probably a copy of it.
In their
So,
account.
so we're going to use GWA's JD Edwards infrastructure to capture GSWA payments? CC&B. Is everybody aware of that?
We talked to them, and they've agreed to pay for the cost that would take to upgrade.
They're going to pay for the software upgrade.
Yeah.
Now, who's responsible for improper collections? What happens when the bank deposit doesn't reconcile up against the payment posting? Who's responsible for the shortage?
So at the end of the day, what would happen is there would be a reconciliation.
So we're responsible.
Right. Well, so
For reconciliation.
GWA takes care
Well,
of
no, we're
what you want.
responsible for either the shortage of cash on the deposit.
Just the reconciliation. So that's why I went to Bank Pacific, because they do accept these payments. And I think we're sort of overcomplicating what the cashiers will do. Think of a bank teller. At the end of the day, they separate GWA, GPA, and GSWA at Bank Pacific, and they allocate the cash accordingly, or checks. Because when you're depositing a check, that's not it's written to GSWA. So that was a great question on NSF. I don't worry about it, because the bounce check will either be a GPA bounce check, a GWA bounce check, or a GSWA bounce check, which we all deal with anyway, right? But at Bank Pacific, it's a simple banking transaction of a cashier receiving payments. But I appreciate, I think it was Commissioner Santos, we're going to need their help to say, because right now you can go to some banks and they say, we don't take GSWA payments. So they're going to have to educate their customer, and the customer will become educated that the only place I can pay my GSWA is at Bank Pacific, Bank X, Bank Y, and maybe GPA, GWA. So Bank Pacific finds it, and they charge a fee, finds it simple to do, just another service they offer when you're paying your mortgage, I go in once a month.
Are they Bank Pacific customers?
GSWA is, yeah.
No, the people that are going into Bank Pacific to pay, are they Bank Pacific customers?
Yeah, so when I pay my mortgage,
So
I
that's
pay my
convenient.
power.
Okay?
Right, but all I'm saying is that bank, for its own business reasons, has not found the accounting or bounce checks or any of those issues to be problematic, because it really is straightforward cash management at a cashier. I mean, that's where you do the reconcile. A cashier's not going to know if the check's going to bounce. They're only GSWA is going to know when the check bounces, when they make the deposit from the armored car, and 2 days later, it boingos. GSWA is notified that a check from Simon that you deposited in your account bounced. We could care less. We're just facilitating the paperwork. Actually, that's all we're facilitating, and cash and credit card, right? Okay, so then already we're saying what other banks are saying. You can go into some banks and they'll tell you, we don't take the payment, or we only take GPA, or we only, whatever they say, right? Not all banks take all payments, right? But for those, at least Bank Pacific, they do, for their private business reasons. I asked them, how's the accounting? And they said it's fairly straightforward, right? It's cashier management 101, right? And they don't accept credit card at Bank Pacific, but you can write a check or pay cash. And so we can make the rules of engagement to protect ourselves. But I guess what I'm hearing from our management, and I agree with Commissioner Santos, is that they'd like to try it. It is a common ratepayer. If we can help make that payment a little easier for that ratepayer and help assist their utility, and we're getting paid for it, and they're paying for the upgrade, that's why I'm okay with it. It seems like we've covered all. We're getting paid for it, they're paying for the upgrade. Although I'm kind of, what are they upgrading if you're just accepting payments?
So they're going to put barcodes on the bottom of their coupons.
Oh, okay.
So that we can scan it in.
Easier, yeah. And also remember, Bank Pacific can't read the bill either. They don't know whether, when you pay a GPA bill or GWA or GSWA, they're not online. They don't know whether Simon's paying it current, Simon's showing up with the latest bill. They have no idea. But they'll take $200 from you and send it to GPA or GSWA or GWA. Then they're done with it, right? And so I think from that point of view, the logistics are, it's a common practice. And we already accept 2 payments at the same places. We're just going to add a 3rd payment. But it's not our money. There's no commingling. I think that was the biggest concern of all of us. And it's just cashier accounting. At the end of the day, you reconcile and say, this is GPAs, GWAs, GSWAs. Here, armored car, boom. Whatever happens after that, each individual utility deals with the good, the bad, or the ugly. And if you're not going to take credit cards, you've really simplified it. So now it's just cash or check.
Okay.
Like Bank Pacific.
Oh, thanks, Mr. Chair. I think everybody is in agreement that they want to help. I think what's unclear is what we are actually helping accomplish. I don't think that is clear at all. What are we trying to help them do? I don't know if that's clear. If it's really, so we're doing all of this to help them process 50 transactions a week? I don't think that's truly what they need help with. I'm not saying that we shouldn't move forward. I'm just thinking that we probably should just have them come in and explain to us exactly what we're trying to help them with. If we're doing all of this, that's what I'm understanding. It's not seem like that's going to be a big help.
We did the calculations based on 50 a week. It could be more, it could be less.
Okay. So
Everybody's guessing.
So my suggestion then,
Just a minute, John. The commissioners first. Everybody done? Because I have a couple more comments. Go ahead.
I just want to make it clear that I think we should first get on the table and negotiate this thing with them. Because you got to come to an understanding where all of these is going to connect. And I think the concept is good. You have the commissioners, it seems like you have the commissioner's support, but I've yet, I'm going to speak for myself, I've yet to see what is the fees. There's 2 different fees now. We're talking GWA and GPA, and then we average it out, which is, it's good. But they're both 2 different entities, so from 92 to dollar or something. Those are 2 different prices.
I think we're a little under $1, a little over $1, and the average is $1.04. So
I understand that. What I'm saying is that I think it should be put on the table first. Where do we go from that? And just write down all the concerns that we have, and that's my recommendation, to go back and say, okay, I need to work this out. Let's work it out. Let's agree to the concept. The concept is good. And
I would just add, the authorization includes the ability to negotiate, to get to an MOA that's acceptable, and if it's not acceptable to us, we don't do it. So I think that's kind of built into the resolution as we have it right now.
So in other words, just approve the concept to negotiate.
No,
I mean, that's
I
what you're
think-
telling me. We want
You're
this commission-
authorizing us to
Authorize
to
management.
accept it subject to an MOA that is acceptable to us.
I think there's a bigger issue here that needs to be addressed, no? Because it's obvious from all the discussions that I'm hearing. So maybe it has to get with the commission from the GWSA board and find out. But as far as this resolution and how to make it happen and the details and all the operational factors to make it happen, we can make it happen and protect, the interests of those are it's very simple actually in our mind to get this done. Now, there is a bigger concern as to, what is the end goal here, or is there anything more? And so that we can answer, I can answer. All I know is that when I look at this, we can get it done without impacting the utility, and protecting its revenues and all that. So I think maybe, there should be some discussions between the commissions to see if there's other ways we can help them, or really what are they looking for? Because that's all. We're kind of, in my opinion, we're trying to do a good thing, but yet I'm feeling that I'm getting bombarded to do a lot of things that is not even my business, no? So all I'm saying is that it's very simple for us, but there's a bigger issue here that might be of concern, which is reasonable, that things may lead to other bigger things which we're not going to get into until we come to the commission anyway. So all we're asking is to approve a policy for us to accept, and then we will base it all and try and make it happen, and we'll make it happen, that's all, without interfering with the utility.
I would just point out, Mr. Chair, I know we've had a lot of discussion, but I don't recall that we actually had a motion.
Yeah. Well, sometimes we do that. Sometimes we have a lot of discussion because maybe we're not ready to have a motion, okay? That's fine. I have now a few comments to make, like everybody's spoken. First off, I understand the role that banks play, but that's basically in their charter. And banks or even credit unions, Leroy, do you know if you accept solid waste payments at Post 360? No, you don't? Okay.
Not not.
Solid waste. Okay. So banks, though, have it in their ability to do that if they desire. Now, the bank may desire not to do that. And the other two things that I have to tell you is when I first went and signed up for my solid waste trash, and I have my big thing, and I never fill it up, but I put it out every week. I got my first bill. I went to pay at Treasurer of Guam, and they told me, no, we don't take that payment. So from the concept of the one government, they don't accept that payment. So recently I went back just to make sure. Maybe that was a long time ago, and things have changed. So I had to make my estimated tax payment in April, that lovely payment that we have to make all 4 times a year.
Which was your trash bill or the estimated payment?
Oh, I wish the trash bill was all I had to pay. So I went back, and while I was paying my estimated income tax, I said to the person, I said, by the way, can I pay my solid waste? She said, no. So from the one Guam concept, what's wrong with the Treasurer of Guam? Now, finally, there's something that I have to, it's not that, I just wonder about what the end game here is, because I have to tell you one thing. Andy Gale, who's a friend of mine, has never called me up about this. He's the chairman for the Guam Solid Waste. And I didn't think it was my place to go call him and say, Andy, what do you want? What do you need? If he needed something, I thought maybe he would call me up and say, Joey, can we talk?
Well, he did mention it to me.
Yeah, I know that, Simon, but I'm sorry.
And then when I saw management pick it up, I said, okay, they're talking. Because they're really the group that has talked first.
I'm still saying that, when you were chairman, if somebody wanted something from the commission, they usually went to you, or sometimes they went to commissioner, and then usually you went to I would go to the chairman and say, hey, by the way, I was approached. But nobody approached me about this.
I would
really.
have told you, except they brought up the resolution.
They brought it up,
So
but
you
that's,
knew it was happening.
well,
All right.
I
It's up
knew.
to them to defend, not
No. I knew it was happening because I read about it in the paper. That's where I found out about it. And everything to date that I've read about lets me believe that the end game is they're looking for universal acceptance of this process and universal payment. And they want to, they're very clear, the PDN, go read it today. They want to tie it to the to the waterworks bill or the power bill, or both.
That's not what the resolution states.
I know that's not what the resolution states, but I'm just saying, sometimes you take one step and the next thing you know, you're married and you have the baby, okay?
Not necessarily in that order.
Not necessarily in that order. So, you know what? I tell you what, general managers, here's what you need to do. You need to take this back, in my opinion, and by the way, I'm the only one, so you folks can make a motion to adopt and accept, that's fine with me. But I would recommend that our managers take this back and sit down with the management of solid waste and say, what is your end game here? What are you trying to accomplish? Commissioner Sanchez.
Thank you, Mr. I'm willing to make the motion to approve, but
Okay,
if we
go ahead.
don't have the vote, so I move to approve joint resolution 2021-06 and 15 FY 2021 from GPA and GWA relative to having the two utilities help GSWA with the receipt of payments as described in the resolution and the instructions to get it underway. So I'm okay with it.
I second the motion. Second the motion.
Call for the vote, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, all those, okay, further discussion, let's allow. No, you're right,
Well,
no.
that's a normal course, right?
Yes.
If we go
Proper.
If we go down this road, I'm gonna get in. Yes.
You have 5 minutes.
No.
I won't need 5 minutes.
We're a very tolerant group, we try to let.
I think it's in our rules, right?
Okay, 2 minutes.
Yes.
Is it in our rules?
We had 7 minutes in the
No.
25th.
You're an underclassman, sir. You have 5 minutes.
Fine. That'll be fine. I won't need 5 minutes.
Okay,
I think we're all in agreement that we want to assist, okay? And I don't want to go down the road of voting, because you're going to get a no vote from me. The question is not whether we want to help. The question is, what are we actually helping to do? I don't think it's clear. And the fact that we don't have these answers, I know I asked for the cost analysis at the working session. I don't have anything.
I'm sorry, I emailed it.
But anyway, that's not what I'm getting at, because I still want to understand how you came up with $1 per transaction. That's fine. I think we all want to support it. Let's just find out exactly what we're trying to support before we move forward. If you guys want to proceed, then fine. My vote will be no.
anybody else? Commissioner Santos.
One discussion, I'm going to give you my time. I think we're beating up this issue, and the real issue at hand today is we have to allow our managers to move forward. That's their job. Okay? Notwithstanding the questions that you have, Commissioner Taco, you need to give them that. I mean, honestly, how you came up with $1, and that's fine with me, as long as it's cost recovery, that works for me. I'm not going to beat that up. But again, I think we all know there is an end game that we're not invited to the table. And the good news for us, commissioners, we can kill that. Okay? We can kill unless we're ordered by the legislature to do it, that's a different story. Even that is debatable.
Even that is debatable.
But if they're looking for a solution for a billing issue and a collection issue, and we're the only place that they could do it, then they got some serious talking to do to 5 members. Because right now it's not gonna fly. We all know that. So the basic issue is, I would like to vote to move the discussion forward, and if it doesn't satisfy the 2 gentlemen at this table, it's over. Well, that's why I would hope that we have an end clause, and don't come back to us. I mean, we voted to approve this, you just simply tell us,
You killed it.
we can do it or not,
killed it.
and then we're done. Otherwise, we're coming back here, and you know what? I think we all know all it's going to be is more aggravation, quite honestly, because then it's going to be a different issue instead of just saying, hey, I just want to take a payment. Oh no, all of a sudden, you know what? You better help us. And they got bigger problems than just wanting a ratepayer to come here to help pay. Their GSDWA has larger problems that's totally outside of our scope. And we're not in any position to make debt payments for them. That's certainly something we don't want to get into, but that's my yes vote.
Okay. Commissioner Sanchez.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I think much of the confusion really is on the GSWA side, perhaps public comments made by other elected officials about what their end game is. I'm comfortable enough with the language in the resolution, and I trust management enough to say, especially with the feedback of Commissioner Santos, that, hey, put an out clause in. If this doesn't work, we want to be able to walk away nicely, right? But I'm comfortable with it because I think they can handle it, and they want to handle it. And I think they're hearing enough concerns from the board about, hey, okay, if we do this, this is all on you guys. And whatever the end game is, I'm confident this board would not allow whatever their goal is to interfere with the operations of this utility. And I don't see this as a major interference. I see it as just helping customers that are also our customers. And I'm confident this board and this management would never threaten the other financial pieces, the integrity of either authority, just by, for any further, interaction with GSWA. I view this as sometimes you can pay at a Bank Pacific and some years you can't. And this bank you can do it, and that we can do the banking. Is it worth it? Good point. I saw an email or something that they came up with $1. I didn't really get into the analysis. These folks are good. I've trusted them with lots of money for a long time, and if they think it's $1, who am I to say it's not? So that's why I'm going to support the resolution with the caveats that all five of us have shared with them. They're just both eyes wide open, and this is to me, if this is simply being another place, to me the end game is this is just another place a ratepayer can make a payment because they can't do it at the Treasurer Guam, or they can't do it at your banks, but they can do it at Bank Pacific, and if we approve it, they can do it at Fidian and Upper Tumon. And I think Tolling mentioned it, or was it Miguel, that if you've ever been to GSWA's main office, you can't do anything over there. So they have an old drop box they used to have. They're on the second floor. They're not set up for customers like we are. That's why they go to banks. That's why they're asking us, because we are set up. They're nowhere near. They don't have a physical facility. So I can appreciate if we're running them, we're saying, hey, go get an outlet to accept your payment. And they're reaching out to GPA and GWA because they know we're good at it and we can handle it. So that's why I'll support the resolution.
Commissioner Taco.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, GWA staff did provide the email to me. I was just notified that they emailed it. I didn't see it.
Okay.
I'm reviewing it now, and what it shows is their estimated. Did everybody get it? Did everybody read it?
No,
I didn't read it, but it was sent. What they did is they provided an estimated number of payments, an estimated number of seconds or minutes, which translates, I think, to 45 seconds, for the actual processing of the payment, right? The cashier's time, the accountant's time, then they have other costs that they have here associated with paper, printer, ink, receipt, tape, so some, direct costs associated with it. But you guys talked about the software. They're gonna cover the software upgrades, is what you said, right? But there's still got to be some interaction, right?
That wouldn't be, my understanding is the software cost would not be part of the fee for the processing the payment.
Right.
It would be a
They're
separate
just
cost that they
gonna
would
pay it themselves or reimburse you?
Right.
Prior to financing?
They would have to agree to it prior and pay for it prior to us conducting the work.
Okay, so they did provide it. GWA's came out to 92 cents, and GPA's cost based on labor and these other associated costs. I'm not sure that may be the direct cost, or there are other costs, associated with the manager's times, the O&A. I don't see that here, but it may be insignificant. And $1.16 for GPA. But either way, I still am unclear on what we're trying to help accomplish.
Commissioner Martinez.
Just one final comment. So in other words, this motion here is authorizing management to negotiate.
No.
They're authorized to issue a request for.
No, sorry.
Wait, am I reading the right one?
No, I think you're looking at 15 and it's actually 17.
Oh, did I say the wrong number?
I think you did.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, We need to correct that. So what's the correct resolution number? I need to amend the motion, Mr. Chairman, just for the record.
17.
So it's GWA Resolution 2117?
17-FY 2021.
17-FY 2021, and what's the other one for GPA? And 2021-11 for GPA, these joint resolutions. That's what we've been discussing for the last few minutes, right? So I want to amend my motion, and I assume the second will carry with that. Yeah. So that's the correct number.
Commissioner Sanchez, you second the amendment, right?
Yes.
Okay,
So
just
now
for
we
the
have
record.
proper resolution. I still remain comfortable with
Okay.
what's in it.
Commissioner Martinez,
So when that passes, when it passes here, that allows them now to
go do it,
Start negotiating.
and do it.
And if we, sorry, to clarify, if we authorized to receive payments subject to an acceptable MOA. So we can negotiate, we reach an acceptable MOA, the board would like us to provide it prior to our executing it, we can do that, and at that point, we would be already authorized to receive. Well, I'm not anticipating that this is going to require us to come back to you for another resolution.
Asking me to come back.
Yeah, I think it's fairly clear now that you're taking it on and you're gonna make that best decision and I'm sure you will. I just want to clear to show that from here on forward, you're gonna be doing the negotiation to both three.
Okay, my final comment is I'm a no vote, and I'm.
Call for the vote then, Mr. Chair.
No, can I just,
okay.
let me just express my 2 cents.
Sure.
That's all. I'm going to call for the vote in just a minute. So my 2 cents is, again, we're not clear on what it is we're trying to accomplish here. The fact that the treasurer of Guam doesn't even collect this payment, and we are talking about being the government and one government and helping everybody out. I mean, you know, if you really want to help our ratepayers out, let's accept the payment for a renewal of registration, vehicle registration.
No.
Because all I'm saying is, those people are our ratepayers too, and they have a long line to stand in. Have you seen the line they stand in? They're welcome just coming up here and just going with it. I'm just saying, I really, that's the part that really bothers me. I read all of this in the newspaper. Nobody talks to me. Nobody talks to anybody else. Commissioner Santos, I don't think anybody really is clear with you on what the end game is either. Right? So that's the problem I have. Okay, everybody ready? All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed? Okay, motion carries. You general managers have what you want.
One comment, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
Before we,
Say that's what they want.
Well, they're the ones who brought it.
We voted, sir.
Okay.
Please don't say that.
They brought it to us. This is what. Okay.
The body voted.
Yeah, the body voted, I get it, but this is something that they brought to us.
And we want it too, because we just
Okay,
voted
okay.
three
No
votes.
problem. Okay.
So, move on.
Okay, next.
Next
Miguel.
resolution, Mr. Chair, is Resolution 18 FY 2021, and this is relative to approving our 5-year financial plan update and proposed rates. If you recall, we, at the work session, had walked you through.
Motion to accept, Mr. Chair.
Okay, motion
For
to.
discussion purposes, second, Mr. Chairman.
Second, okay, go ahead.
We had walked you through the completion of the analytical studies, the results of those studies, maybe you can put up the other slide. The integration of all of the results of the analytical studies into the stipulated rates, or the stipulation to determine what the rates would be. And at that point, we provided a slide that showed that it would be 59.5% cumulative rate increases over the 5-year period if we followed everything in the stipulation and incorporated all the results of the analytical studies. We indicated that that was untenable, and we had proposed some adjustments, and our proposed overall system rate increases for the next 3 years at 10%, 10%, and 7%. for a cumulative increase of 37% over the 5-year period. Our initial filing, if you recall, was 38%, back when we submitted this for the PUC action in 2019. So at that's where we kind of left it with the general system increases. We did not have details on the proposed rate design and what that would mean for the specific rate classes for both the water and the wastewater fees. So that's what's different tonight. And if it's the board's pleasure, I can attempt to walk us through that. We do have the consultants on hold for tomorrow morning in the event that more detail is required and a detailed walkthrough of the rate application model would be necessary. I can't do that, but we are set up to do that if it's the board's desire. If not, we can walk through this. I can try to explain the rate design fairly quickly, and hopefully I do it with enough information to enable your decision.
Commissioner Santos, yes.
Can we just go to page 77 of Board Books? This is the pro forma.
Yes.
Okay. Where's FY 2025? Because that's only adding up to 27 of the projected.
Oh, no.
Oh, because the first 2 years were already approved
Oh, so
for
you-
2020.
okay, so it's in there. Okay, got it.
So that makes the 37.
That's the difference.
Right.
And Miguel, before you leave that, for the record, just confirm that when you said it was originally 37, but we've been granted 2 years, what was the rate increase in 19? Was it 10?
It was 38 in our initial filing.
Right. And what was the rate increase in 19?
I don't think we had a rate increase in 19. There was no rate
Oh, I'm sorry, 20. That's right, we were delayed. What was the rate increase in 20?
5% and 5% for 20 and 21.
So it's 5, 5, 10, 10, 7, right? That's what I
37.
thought. Right.
37.
So that's how it went from 57 down to 37, right? The PUC did not accept our initial proposal and reduced the 2 rate increases. And please correct me if I'm wrong. They reduced our original request in the first 2 years, right? They did not give us.
That's right, but our original request was 38%, starting
5
at
years.
10, and then the second year at 8.5, and then reducing as we went on.
Right, so now with what they did approve and the projected approval that you're seeking from us, that's how the cumulative now is,
37,
and the original was
38.
30. So it's actually the same rate adjustment that we proposed?
Not year over year, but cumulatively, it's lower than the original application,
How much lower?
1%.
Okay, so so in effect, it's roughly the same, right? 1% lower, but 38, 37, Mrs. Cruz is not going to notice
But
the
the
difference.
larger number that I referred to is if after the stipulation said, do all these analytical studies, take the outputs of the analytical studies and put them into your model. And then if we did that, as per the stipulation, then the rate increases required to meet everything that's in the stipulation would be 59.5. The cumulative rate increases would be 59.5%.
Does the PUC agree with that accumulated, or that's just our calculation of
I
how?
haven't seen this yet.
Because they haven't seen it. So our calculation is when we put it all back together, the 5-year plan, we got 2 years, we got 2 years approved, subject to the subsequent years are subject to the studies which you've done, and now you've populated a proposed rate adjustment based on those studies. And when you add them together, the accumulated raw number, it's not the compounded number, but is 25, 5, 10, 10, 7, right? That's the way to think. Is that the right way to, if I were to describe it to a ratepayer?
That's what we're proposing.
Right, okay. So, right, and that is very similar to the original 38% in terms of aggregate.
Right.
Okay, the compound, okay. So, at the end of the day, we're sort of looking at the same rate case. But you did point out to us in the presentation that in the back and forth with the rate consultants for the PUC and the studies, there was some projection by somebody, I guess, that thought it might approach 58%, and yet once you guys had a shot at building your case and thinking about it, it's this 37%, very similar to our original proposal, correct?
Let me clarify, Commissioner. So this is our original percentage when we submitted our initial filing 2019. We went through the stipulation. which set 5% for 2020, 5% for 2021, then
Come back to them. Come back.
5, 3.5, and 2. Right? Then COVID happened while we were in the process of completing the analytical studies. We put this here because obviously this has an impact on our actual performance versus projected. So, purpose, what we said in the stipulation was we do all these analytical studies, and then based on the recommendations from those analytical studies to accomplish what the stipulation set out, we would roll that into the updated financial model and see what the rates would require, what rates would be required to vary to check against what those initial placeholder rates were. So we did that, and when we came back, when we were in the work session, we were right here, and we said, that's going to end up being, if we follow everything that's in the STIP, that's going to end up being 59.5. So that is our projection of what rate increases would be required to achieve the objectives of the stipulation after having completed all the analytical studies. Okay. So what we're saying is that doesn't make any sense at all. We can't, that's not something that can be supported. And so what we're doing, what we're proposing now is to make adjustments, and which include a temporary relaxation of the debt service coverage ratio from 1.4, which is in the stipulation, to 1.3. Using the water demand forecast that was part of the analytical studies projected a 10% overall reduction in system demand, and that's primarily because of what projections we have to make on when we will recover from the pandemic. And that's a conservative, that 10% is more conservative than our consultants think perhaps it should be. So if there's a less pessimistic outlook on the recovery, then we can reduce that to a 4.8 overall reduction in demand. And then, of course, we're also going to continue our cost containment measures of 5.5% off of our baseline O&M expenditures per year. So making those adjustments, we're making this proposal of 10, 10, and 7% for the next 3 years, which takes us to a cumulative of 37%, which is very much in line with the initial proposal that we submitted in 2019. Now, that's where we left it at the work session, and what's changed, the additional information we have tonight is the details of the proposed rate design for each individual rate class. What are the changes percentage-wise to the base charges and also volumetric charges? So that's the detail that I could explain if it was the board's pleasure to continue down this road.
Okay.
And not, or we could, if there's a lot of questions, we can have the consultants tomorrow to explain what I can explain or go through the detail.
Okay. Commissioner Mchako, you have some.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Miguel, do you recall what the stipulated rate, what they used for the demand? Were they forecasting a increase in demand? Or did their study?
At the time the stipulation was signed, they didn't, what we submitted in the original package was fairly level, right? In terms of demand. No growth, no, nominal growth based on what we see in the meters.
Okay.
Or the building permit.
1%?
Less than 1% growth. I think it was 0.5%.
And they accepted that as?
They accepted it when they set the first 2 years of the plan.
First 2 years of the stipulation.
But they said, we're not going to accept it for the last 3 years of the plan because we want you to do demand forecasting so we know.
And the analytical studies.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Okay.
So, moving to the next slide. So what we did was we prepared various scenarios in the rate application model to prepare cash flow forecasts, and those are schedules A1, A2, and A3, which are being handed out. This is the part that if the consultants were present, they would actually walk you through this in the rate application model. So Schedule A1 is just a pro forma cash flow using the existing rates, and it tells you what our performance is, and what to pay attention to here are the red, anything that's colored in either red or red shading or red font. And you can see for the projected years of 22, 23, and 24, our debt service coverage is below the requirement of the indenture requirement of 1.25, so we would be in technical default. And then our days O&M would go from the current year projection of 225 days, next year to 122 days, and then it would rapidly deplete to 13 days, and then we'd be in the red after that. Obviously below those targets. So this does not work. And this assumes debt service coverage targets remain at 1.4 times, and the target established for fiscal year 2024 is to smooth the impacts of the fiscal year 25 when the takeout bonds for the commercial paper fall into place. And if you look at Schedule A2, this is same pro forma cash flow using existing rates, but modified assumptions specifically with regard to demand impacts and elasticity and our O&M cost containment. So even if we use the existing rates, we modify the demand impacts and we implement the cost containment, things improve slightly, but they don't get us to where we need to be. Again, the debt service coverage ratio for the 3 remaining years are below the 1.25 indenture requirement, and our days cash also go negative. So using Schedule A3, which is...
And Miguel, just to confirm, the modified assumptions are the reduction in debt service, the decrease in demand, but existing rates, right? So you utilize from the analytical studies, you used all the modified assumptions that led to the revised rate schedule, but with the existing stipulated rates, right? For A2?
Correct.
Okay. So that includes a temporary relaxation of the 1.4 debt service coverage target to 1.3, revised baseline water demand of a 4.8% overall reduction in demand, and the cost containment of 5.5%. Those are the modified assumptions, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So for Schedule A3, you implement all of those modified assumptions, right? And then we go with the 1.3 times versus the 1.4 times, and then you make the necessary rate adjustments that we've proposed here, 10%, 10%, and 7%, and we just keep the debt service coverage ratio above the 1.3 mark. Again, in year 2024, that is higher than the 1.3 mark, but it's only because in 2025, the debt service will kick in from the takeout bond, and then it'll go back down. And then our days cash number meets the target. But we do have a few years of net cash flow in the operating fund that goes a little negative. So what we're proposing, and this reflects the overall system revenue increases, right? The general 10%, 10%, and 7%.
Okay. Commissioner Sanchez has a question before you move on.
Thank you,
And
Mr.
I
Chairman.
have a question after he's done.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Miguel, I'm trying to recall, and please help me or correct me if I don't recall it accurately, but when we were talking to the rate consultant, Mr. Rothstein, what did he say about rate structure? I mean, these analytics are perfect. They are strictly cash flow. They don't, but I thought, and correct me if I'm wrong, I heard him say that there would be some adjustments across different rate classes. There is some change in kind of rate design. Did I understand him correctly? And is there a way to see, and if I did, is there a way to see, as you've done in the past, a commercial customer, a large user, a residential user. I do recall at the last meeting, I think for residential users, if under your proposed plan, the Maria's $92 bill would go to $112, like it was like a $20 a month increase in 2025, 3 years from now. And I've always appreciated seeing, first confirming, is there a change in the structure amongst rate classes? And then can we illustrate, at least for the record, I know you've done it at least in prior meetings, at least for residential is what I recall. I don't know if you did it for other commercial or other types of accounts, government. But oftentimes, so first off, was there a change in rate design, rate structure within the classes? Can you summarize that? And,
Yes.
and can you illustrate, if possible, what a ratepayer today in that class is paying and what a ratepayer in 3 years would be paying if your plan was adopted?
Yes. Next slide, please. This slide just sort of answers your previous question at the work session, Commissioner Sanchez, about the additional revenues that will be generated and what would they be applied to.
Okay,
Right.
great, thank you.
And so you can see by this breakdown for the existing debt service and new debt service, it's the 28.5 and 12.5 number. That is what, 40%,
41%.
41% of the total revenues would, over the remaining 3-year period would be used to cover the debt service. That does not include monies that would be put away for internally funded CIP, which would be another 24.5 million.
And what percentage is that?
It's hard to roll into this calculation of percentage because it comes out of what's already in reserves or what's already in the
Yeah, so what I was trying to capture is how much of a ratepayer's rate increase is going to CIPs, for example? And
so it would be upwards of 41%.
higher than 40, closer, okay.
Okay. So that I just wanted to show that slide because it answered your question from last time.
Yeah, I mean, but it doesn't go to 60% or 70%. I mean, within the range, right? What's the maximum range you accept?
Well, if you look at the number, it's for the over the next 5 years, it's this 17 and 7, right? $1 million difference. So that would be 24 out of the 60, which gives you
The 40%, right?
Each year, we're putting in an additional $8 million towards internally funded CIP, so that would be an additional $24 million.
But some of that $8 million is coming from the rate hike, correct?
Right.
All right, so so that was kind of a number I was trying to get at. When you take, where is the ratepayer's money going for this rate hike? At least 40%, and now you're describing plus another 8 million, whatever that percentage is.
Per year is going towards CIP projects.
Is going to go to CIPs. And can you perhaps briefly summarize of that money going to CIPs, how much is going to like leak repair or, kind of the subcategories?
So over the 5-year period, the capital improvement program for the full 5 years has not changed. We're not proposing to change it. And that was a $342 million capital improvement program. Of that amount, court order and consent decree projects would represent about $156 million or 47% of the total CIP. If you add projects that would address water loss control, that would be an additional $66 million or an additional 19%. So those 3 categories altogether roughly would cover 2/3 of the capital improvement program, 66% of the capital improvement program.
Okay, so I'm sorry, so repeat that again. So 2/3 of the, how much of the rate increase is going to CIPs when you do both CapEx borrowed and internal? It came up to about, I just want to make sure I got the number right for the record, get it on the record, right? It was you've got court order, consent decree, non-revenue water. In fact, I think now I'm starting to recall out of your $342 million, we are finishing up the first court order for $46 million. Well, I'm reading 46 here from this previous summary. And then you're doing $113 million of the $340 million is for the new consent decree. And what kind of projects are in that new consent decree?
Sewer pump station work primarily, sewer collection system work primarily, Northern District upgrades to the treatment plant for secondary.
So a lot of wastewater, okay. And then we've always been concerned about the non-revenue water, and our goal is to reduce it from its 50 to 60% down to 20%, and to begin reducing that.
That's correct.
How much is going, and how much of the 340 million that would be raised by this rate hike, proposed rate hike, the 66 million, I guess I'm guessing, what is that? That's almost 20% of that money is going to deal with a problem we wanted to deal with for 900 years.
That's correct.
It helps the aquifer, stops all those leaks. So a big chunk of this, 20% of the CIPs funded by this rate hike would deal with the non-revenue water, the leaking water that we're seeing out there, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And then you've got environmental safety compliance, 32 million. Capacity, 26 million. Is that more water wells? Is that where that comes from?
Not just the capacity to produce, but capacity to distribute.
Okay, so produce and distribute. So into the water system versus the wastewater system.
Line size upgrades.
Okay. And then I remember you saying something about efficiency upgrade, about 56 million. What kinds of things come with efficiency upgrades?
The SCADA improvements, the IT infrastructure improvements, all of those types of projects would be covered under the efficiency category.
And at the end of this 5-year period, we will have planted the rate seeds to be able to raise this 340 million, and we will actually have started to access some of that, borrow some of that money.
Most of it, yes.
Correct, by the end of this rate period. So this is sort of a continuation of what we've been doing for the last 20 years of rebuilding the entire system with 5-year rate adjustments, keep it as affordable as we can and spread it out. And this next set of rate hikes that we're looking at would produce the seeds for $340 million of improvements, capital improvements. It's driven by the existing court order and the new consent decree. That's that's more than a third of it, but huge focus on non-revenue water, the leaks,
right.
And then the other items that we just discussed. That's the breakdown on the 342. I just want to get that on the record, Mr. Chairman, just so that
No problem.
our ratepayers know what management is proposing to fix with the rate hike that they're proposing, right? And and then we can decide if we're comfortable with that. Oh, perfect. Perfect. This looks like a previous submittal. Okay, very good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Miguel, as you go through this, I'm wondering, is there a change to the sewer charge for residences?
Yes.
In this one?
Can we get to that slide?
Yeah, let's see some
Okay,
draft bills.
no, Miguel, if you're going to get to it eventually,
Yes.
I'll wait. Okay.
Is this in board books, the one you're showing us?
No.
No. We were going to have this on for tomorrow morning, so I was not prepared to load it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
What's the body want to do?
Just time out. Commissioner Limpiaco has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Miguel, and just to reiterate what Commissioner Sanchez has pointed out, the GWA Capital Improvement Program, these were already part of what we approved initially when we went to the PUC prior to the actual stipulated rates, right? So we've already approved this once. We understood what we were spending, what those rate increases were going to initially. This really hasn't changed much from that initial approval. What we're trying to do is just get back on track from what we approved initially and what you're presenting today. And if you can, just so that the audience knows, is how much different are the rates we're proposing now as they were prior to the PUC adopting the stipulated rates? Our original proposal?
Our initial proposal was cumulatively 38%.
So you've actually come back 1%. From the analytical studies, and although it's very tight, you've reduced that overall rate increase, correct?
It's about the same.
It's about the same.
37%, so we reduced it by 1%.
1%, okay.
But we lost the compounding because
Correct, and you have to make that up because of the rates you were charging the last year or so.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
So,
Go ahead.
just to highlight some of the policy considerations that should be made in reviewing these proposed rates. First off, of course, is the impacts of the pandemic. There was a 20% decline in our revenues, and those, of course, created associated impacts on our debt service coverage. And the affordability of water service during the pandemic obviously was affected, so that created challenges which, we've sought to address in the design that we're submitting to you. The other thing, there are embedded subsidies across the rate classes, which I'm sure the board has always been aware of. The cost of service analysis is intended to quantify what those are, but they're not really going to tell us something that we don't already know, and that is that residential services are subsidized by other rate classes. The other thing to consider is that there are certain limits on what we can do with lifeline rate adjustments, which also kind of make those cross subsidies. If we don't address that, it will continue to widen the gap or increase the amount of that subsidy, which is something the board should consider as to whether they don't want to do. I think what we're presenting begins to close that gap and not allow it to continue to widen.
Miguel, can I stop you for a minute? Because your 5-year plan, if you get what you want, will be 37%, but I forgot. You are increasing the lifeline rate in the 5th year also.
2.5%.
So actually, the total increase is 39.5%?
No.
That's not the way to read it. Okay, no problem.
Overall, it's the overall.
It's included in the 7%? Okay. Then okay.
So the other thing to consider from a policy perspective is the pricing signals, the affordability and access of service for basic human health and sanitary needs, water use efficiency. This is coming out of also part of the demand forecasting. Those overall system demand declines, which appear nationwide, are a result of that. The price elasticity is a result of that. And then also where there are opportunities to simplify or improve the rate structure, we've tried to work that into what we're proposing by varying the legislative surcharge application, or varying the legislative surcharge application is what is the current condition. We'd like to kind of fix that. Use of the blunt lifeline rate form and requirements, the limitations on when we can raise it, that kind of makes things a little more difficult in terms of affordability. And then different recovery of the basic costs across customer classes through the meter charges. It's not consistent, and so we think we can improve that as well. So those are the things that went into our consideration when proposing the rates. So the existing rates, you can see here on this slide, show how the base charges for water rates vary from meter size across the different classes that are there, residential, commercial, government, irrigation, and agriculture. And then what the volumetric rate charges are. On the residential class, of course, we have 2 tiers. The 5,000 gallon and below is charged at $3.01. And then tier 2, anything above that is charged at 11.83 cents per kgal. And then on the sewer charges, residential is a flat rate base charge of $27.54, and then the other, there are no base charges for the other classes. It's just based on volumetric rates. So that's the current base structure, and then of course on top of this are the lifeline rate adjustment limitations and then non-uniform application of the legislative surcharge.
And Miguel, you do have some miscellaneous but very little impact revenue streams, such as meter installation charges and all those. There's a lot of miscellaneous small revenue ones you have, right? But they're not...
That's not included in what we're asking.
Because they're not really impactful in terms of the overall revenue projection. Am I right?
Correct.
Correct, okay. Now, I just want to ask you, what about the system development charges? Out of curiosity, where are those? Are they growing, or not growing?
I think they're in line with what our projections were. We still have included them in our other revenue sources in the financial.
So they're included under other revenue? And they help you actually with debt service coverage and everything else?
And the ability to do CIPs, yes.
But they're used for CIPs, right?
Yeah,
That's required by law.
That's required by law. But what I mean is it goes all into the mix, and it helps us at the end of
Some of
it.
that 342.
Yeah, I'm just wondering. Okay.
So what we wanted to accomplish is to address the residential affordability issues by a couple of different approaches. One by rate design, and then the other by the customer assistance program, which we talked about briefly at the work session. And then we also wanted to moderate the impacts of the proposed rate increases on non-residential classes that were most impacted by the pandemic, and also whose current rates most subsidize the residential use. And of course, we're talking about hotel, commercial three rate classes. And then, as much as possible, preserve the ability to preserve residential versus non-residential shares of the overall cost of the system, and limit some of the limited reduction of the subsidy of the sewer system. So it's
Of the residential sector.
on everything. The water system overall subsidizes the sewer system in terms of what it costs to run each. And so we're looking at trying to reduce that subsidy between systems.
Okay, so on a going forward basis, though, you're going to find out from US EPA a lot more of your enforcement issues are going to be related to wastewater more than water? Is that correct?
That is the bulk of what is in the consent decree
And
is wastewater.
And wastewater is much more expensive, I think, to deal with. Would that be accurate to state than the water itself?
I think for most utilities that are combined utilities, that is the case, where the sewer rates are contribute to more to the majority of the overall bill.
Yeah, I think, over time, we've had this thing where I remember when we started back in 1985 at the PUC, it was like $14, $8 for water and $6 for sewer, and they were just flat charges. That was it. Everybody got a $16 bill. And I think over time we come to realize that the sewer portion is a real big portion. And we've been raising water rates, but the sewer rate has not kept up. Okay, thank you.
So just a couple of the items that we wanted to simplify: provide uniform application of the legislative surcharge across all rate classes, provide consistent base charges on the wastewater side, as the same as they apply to the water side. So your base charges that are scaled up by meter size on the water side, we want to apply that to the wastewater side as well. And then round the rates and charges for the primary components to the nearest fifth cent.
Commissioner Sanchez has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just quickly, Miguel, refresh my memory on the customer assistance program, the CAP program. What is the nature of our assistance?
Well, we don't currently have one, but what we're proposing is that there would be the cost for the customer assistance program would be built into our O&M expenses, and there would be for qualified low-income recipients who will coordinate with other government of Guam agencies who track that to make that determination of if they qualify for other programs, for example, the SNAP program, then they would qualify as a low-income
Food
customer for
stamps,
us, right?
public assistance.
And then they would be provided with a discounted rate or a discount on their bill.
And who pays that subsidy? Commercial?
Everybody else.
Everyone else that is of higher income and all the other classes would pick up they're the funding source for the subsidy to the lower income ratepayers.
Right. And then in addition, there would be outreach for water efficiency, water conservation to help them reduce their bill, to identify and fix leaks, to help so that they're not hit with large bills because they're not paying attention to that kind of thing. That's what we're proposing to be part of the customer assistance program. So what we're proposing for the the rates, and this covers fiscal year 2022, is you can see for the residential class, there it's split into two, residential and residential low income. And there's also been a change. It's now a classic 3-tier inclining block structure for the rates. So up to the first 3,000 gallons, the rate would be $3 per kgal for residential, and then for those that receive the discount, it would be $2.40 per kgal. And then the second tier would be up between 3,000 gallons to 10,000 gallons, and that would be charged at $7 per kgal. And if you're a low-income customer, that discount would apply, and you would be charged $5.60.
So we're changing, in effect, the lifeline rate, yeah?
Yes.
The $3 is different. I mean, the 3 kgal, right now there's a discount on the first 5 kgal, correct?
Right, so it's changing.
So we're reducing the number of kgals eligible for the lowest tiered rate.
Right.
Okay, so in effect, you're raising the lifeline rate, yeah? $3 for 3K versus X.
Except that you're also providing the customer assistance program for the
For some of our ratepayers, but not all of our ratepayers, right? So, I mean, there's, okay. And we can change that tier 1 without going to the legislature. Who sets the lifeline rate? I'm sorry, the PUC or?
No, the PUC sets the
Okay,
rates.
so we would petition the PUC
To change these.
the lifeline rate to these,
Yes.
our rates to these tiers.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
And then above the 10,000 gallons, it would be $14 per kgal. So the more you use, the higher you pay, right?
Yep.
And then the base charges, and this is all based for the classes, the different rate classes. You can see that the meter base charge is consistent across the class, and then as you move into a larger meter size, they're all scaled appropriately. But
Commissioner Talco has a question. Miguel?
And
Commissioner
Miguel,
Talco.
these proposed FY 2022 water rates, they are inclusive of the 10% rate increase on basic water charge, inclusive of the legislative surcharge that you have in the proposed rates, right? So this table here is inclusive of that 10% increase?
yeah, so it's 10% overall, system-wide, and that's, which is why that's applied to the base charge. But if you look at the volumetric charges, it's different for the rate classes. So for example, agriculture, we're holding that rate pretty much constant.
Okay.
And I think that might just be the rounding part of it. And then for irrigation, it's under the 10% system-wide average. And then for commercial 1, all the other classes, it's at 9.7%, which is also below the 10% system-wide average.
Okay.
What about residential? What's the cumulative percentage change?
I have a slide that shows you that based on consumption, okay, because it's the inclining block structure. So the other thing is that the surcharge would be applied across all rate components, and that enables lower than system rate adjustments overall, right? And then, so moving on to the next slide, the proposed sewer rates. This now reflects new base charges that are scaled the same way the meter sizes are scaled. But the base charges are approximately 1/3 of the water base charges. So it slightly reduces that subsidy by establishing this type of base charge, but it doesn't completely close that subsidy, right? So it's what we're proposing would be a gradual, getting there gradually. So the volumetric charges now would apply. So the residential, as you can see, the residential base charge goes to $9 from what it was before at 27 some. But there now will be applied a volumetric rate, and again for the residential class it would be $4.40, and then with the discount for the low income it would be $3.52. And these are new rates, so there is no percent change, right? And then for commercial, the commercial classes, you can see commercial 1, the volumetric rate would be a 0.5% change from FY21, and for commercial 2, 4%. Again, 4% for commercial 3, 4% for hotel. And then for government and Navy, it'd be 9 and 10.3%. And you'll note on the airport rates, we have an asterisk here. The airport has its own water system, which we operate through an operating agreement. We want to, as much as possible, when the cost of service analysis is, the final report is in and those rates calculations are finalized, we want to adjust these proposed rates to reflect that so that we can incorporate them into the operating agreement so that it's we're not losing money on that. So that's why that, just wanted to note that it's subject to further change. Following this charge allows us to keep non-residential rate classes less than the system-wide average of 10% by using those new base charges, and then the different percentage increases for the rate classes that are most significantly impacted by the pandemic. Go to the next slide. So this chart provides a comparison of the residential rates using in red the existing FY 2021 rates, in green the proposed 2022 rates, and then in blue the proposed 2022 rates for the low-income residential class. So you can see on the bottom axis where the consumption is listed. So right up until about 4,000 gallons, everybody is getting cheaper rates for the combined water and wastewater bill. And then beyond that 4,000 point, you can see that the
Give us the color, because I can't read the bottom part.
so the green is
Green is who?
proposed, and blue is proposed for 2022 low income, right? So you can see with the low income program, that the customer assistance program that we have planned, even up through 10,000 gallons right here, the blue line is still lower than the red line, so there will be lower rates for them, even at that usage. But where we are able to make up the difference is with the
Green line.
the green line for just regular residential customers. The more they use, then their rates obviously are above the existing fiscal year 21.
And that decreases the commercial subsidy in effect because of the way you're re-stratifying the volumetric on the wastewater, and you're restructuring the current lifeline down to 3,000.
Right. Moving to the next slide, this is the same residential rates, but this is presented as percent change from the current. So current rates are the red, same color scheme, right? So there's no change from our current rates in FY21, and that's why that aligns with the 0% axis. But if you look, again, this is moving right to left, this is increasing consumption. So at all the way up to 4,000 gallons, you can see the rates, the percent change is negative, so the rates are lower. But there's a tick here at the 5, and that's because we're changing the block structure. Right? So you're always going to get that. But then beyond that, the more you use, there's still a negative percentage for the low income. They're actually seeing a rate decrease.
But the green line goes up.
But the green line goes up above the 21 rates.
Do you have a bill? Do you have a draft bill? Those are beautiful graphs, but when I see someone in Bayless, I want to know what's my bill now and what's my bill next year and the year thereafter.
So the percentage bill impacts for FY 2022 residential customer, all the rate classes are presented, and then you'll see different scales for consumption. So for again the lower consumption ranges for residential below the 4,000 level, you'll see there's a negative percent change in the bill, and beyond that, it's still negative for the low-income customers, but the residential customers varies from once we get over that peak where the 5% or 5 kgal block was. You can see for this, there's the average between 6 and 8. Normal usage in a household is about 7.5 kgals. That's still going to be somewhere below the overall 10%. system-wide increase. So on the non-residential classes, you can see commercial 3, they're, for most consumption, they're below the overall 10% system-wide average. Hotels, for the larger consumption here, beyond 100 kgals, they are also below the 10% system-wide average increase. And very low increases for agriculture. Okay, this is just the percentage change numbers. I don't know if we have a slide for, if you go, so I think this presents it in, this is residential, right? So the blue is water charges and the brown is sewer charges. So this is what it was in 2021. This is just a side-by-side comparison based on meter size. So the base charges for 2021 are scaled here. And for 2022, they're slightly increased and also scaled as well. But here's the difference in the three-tier structure. $3 and $1 down, $3, $7, and $14 based on that 3-10 split on the consumption. And then for the sewer rates, this was the 2754 flat rate, and you can see what the meter charges would be based on the size of your connection, and then the volumetric rate would apply here. For residential.
Are there residences with a 12-inch meter?
Residential rate class. So if it's like an apartment complex and it's...
Oh, I see, like an apartment as opposed to a standalone. Okay, got it. Because their meter size would be larger.
Right.
Right, okay, got it.
And then this is existing and proposed for non-residential rate classes. Again, the base charges by meter size, and then the volumetric volumetric rates here for the different rate classes. For water and sewer.
And the average residential customer would look like what?
Sorry, I don't have that. That's in the rate model. That we can present. I can provide you with that, but a very rough comparison of our original versus what we're proposing in terms of system-wide averages. It's actually less than what we projected in FY 2019.
Right, but the ratepayers can be more concerned, I'm paying so much, the average, let's say using 8,000 gallons.
If you're using 8,000 gallons, it's
The average, the current rate, the current bill that a residential customer with sewer pays is how much? And then under the proposal you're put before us, what would be their new rate that they would pay in subsequent years? Can you show us that?
I don't have anything to show you, but just based on the rough calculation that we did for a residential customer greater than 5,000 gallons combined water and sewer, our original application at the end of the rate period would be 119.64, and rough calculation based on what we're proposing now, the 10, 10, and 7, it would be 116, so $3 less than what we originally proposed.
Right, but how does that compare to what they're paying now? I appreciate that we proposed something, you guys worked hard, and you knocked that number down, but the bottom line for the Don Maria is how much?
About $99 to $116. Now, from 99 now in fiscal year 21
Right.
to 116 in 2024.
In 2024,
For 8,000 gallons.
for the average citizen using
8,000
gallons.
is, I just want to make sure I heard it right.
So it's going to go up
So-
$17 a month.
It's
from-
7.5.
Okay, but
7,500.
It's 7,500.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
no, I
Close
just wanted to
enough.
make sure I got the right number,
I'm with
that's
you.
all.
Yeah, I'm with you, Mr. Chairman. So the average
Gotta go
citizen
home and look at my
today,
bill.
using 7,500 or 8,000 gallons and connected to the sewer currently pays $99.
Right.
And under your proposal, they would pay 19, 16?
116.
Okay,
by
so it'd go from
2024.
$99 to $116 for the average residential consumer.
Between now and 2024.
Okay, all right. So in 2024, their bill would be $116 a month, and between now and then, it would go up slightly from 99 to 105 to 111 to 116,
Right.
something like that?
Right.
Okay.
And I'll get you, we do have the bill impact chart. It's in the rate application model. I'll get you the numbers. I just didn't print that table.
Yeah, I just think it helps us, it helps me for sure, and then just to get it on the record, although I don't want to hold up the meeting unless we want to extend it, but somehow, how do we get that on the record, right? You verbalized it.
Miguel, you verbalized it, but
Okay, so-
I suggest that you augment the record by adding that to the board books. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, but 99 to 116 is this, at the end of the day, the summary of everything you've shown us for the average residential customer, it goes from 99 to 116?
Right.
Okay, thank you.
That's, by the way, just to make sure I heard you correctly, that's for a residential customer, 7,500 gallons to
Water and wastewater.
Water and wastewater. So those,
Connected to the sewer.
so those who are not hooked up to the sewer, it's a lesser amount.
Right.
Okay, good.
Even if you could provide that amount too, because we actually have a lot of people that aren't connected to
Yeah,
the sewer.
you know, your number of people are
Someone's sitting at
sewer,
this table.
sewer is only about 20,
The minimum filing requirements for the PUC package requires us to produce all of that separately for.
sure.
So it'll be in there.
It'll be in
But in
there.
the future, it's always good for your commission too. It's not our first rate rodeo.
Okay. You know, I'm going to tell you that I'm ready to vote on this. You know, we've gone through a long process. This is not something that just happened yesterday. This started with the update to our master plan, and, you know, just drove all these things. It took into account regulatory compliance. It took into account all the good things that we've been wanting to do, such as reduction of water loss. It took into account also, I think one of the things that I was amazed at when I went through the whole report is you're also addressing, trying to address pressure issues across the whole system, which is a good thing. We've been wanting to do that for many years. So I think everything we have is, for me, I'm ready to vote for this at this time. But, you know, are you done, Miguel? Because if you're...
I am, sir.
Okay,
This is as good as I can do.
then for the benefit of the commissioners, and Commissioner Sanchez is out of the room for a minute.
Can I just point out on the resolution, there is one typo, my apologies,
No problem.
which we will change on page 4 of the resolution. The 3-tiered residential rates, we specified 3 kgal and 5 kgal, should be 3 kgal and 10 kgal.
Okay. That's,
That's not in the resolution, though, is it?
Yes, it is.
It's on which page?
What page?
What line item?
Page 4, line 5.
Line 5? Oh, okay. And so this page is getting amended?
Yes.
page 4? Or what page you got
Page 4 of the resolution.
on the resolution?
On,
Item B?
Line 5.
Okay,
The sentence item under item B.
okay, I'm sorry, I'm just catching up.
It's page 74 on your board, folks.
74, right, on the board books? Okay, line item what again? One more time? I'm sorry.
B?
Oh.
Number 5?
5B, okay.
No, not 5B, but 8B.
8B is in boy?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, got it, I see it, okay. Okay. So instead of 5, it'll be 10 kgals. Got it. Is that in the, so it's still like that? Okay.
Yeah.
We'll have to correct that. So therefore, I guess my question is, and Commissioner Sanchez is not here, do you want to recess the meeting to tomorrow and bring in the consultants and go through it again one more time, or?
I don't. All my questions are answered.
Okay. Commissioner Sanchez. No. No, wait, come on. Okay, wait. Okay. No.
Exactly. That's what they used to do in the legislature.
Yeah.
Then I'm gonna lock it.
Okay, Commissioner Sanchez, your other commissioners are satisfied with where we're at? We're ready to vote on
Ready to
this?
vote? Sure.
Unless you have some reservations, no?
It's not my
Okay.
first rate rodeo.
Okay, so on the motion to approve the resolution with the correction on line 5, on page 4, from 5 to 10, K-Gauss, as duly seconded, this is the financial update plan, right? And the rate model that you will be building and presenting to the PUC, right? Okay.
And the public.
And the public, of course, but, okay, on that motion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimous. Okay,
Aye.
okay, good. Moving right along. Next,
Makes me miss the LEAC.
Resolution 19 FY 2021.
don't even go there. Don't even go there.
Is relative to approving the contract for water line replacement at Tawi Road and Toto Cañada Loop.
Motion to accept resolution 19, Mr. Chairman.
Second, okay. Go ahead. Any discussion, or do you want to make, I think we covered this in the work session. So are there any other questions, commissioners? If not,
Just for the record, what is it, 1.8, just a quick summary, just so we get, the public that may not have seen the work session, just a quick summary, Miguel.
The total cost would be 1.945 million for this, and it would be
For both
funded
projects.
through bond proceeds under 2 different CIP line items.
And this is Ta'i Road and Bloss Street and Cañada Toto Loop, Bloss Street,
Right.
in those villages, right? Okay.
yeah, the Sparagata and Mangilo.
And Mangilo.
Ta'i Mangilo. Okay. So we have a motion already, right? Already. Second, any further discussion? None? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimous. Next.
Next resolution is Resolution 20 FY 2021, and this is relative to creating the position of Community Outreach Program Director at GWA. This is in line with our various programs that we want to promote in the community, including the affordability program that is included in our proposed rate package to the PUC, the FOG program, which is critical to our ongoing efforts as part of the NPDS permitting for our wastewater treatment plants, and similar programs. The position will be within the administrative division. There's no cost to create the position, but the position itself is between $83,000 and $85,000 per annum. It is intending that the funding source for this will be, once the position is filled, will be from revenues, but a portion of the costs for the position, if under the grant program that we're seeking under the AmeriCorps grant for funding these public outreach programs, would cover a portion of the cost.
Okay. Is there a motion?
Motion to accept, Mr. Chairman.
Is there a second? Okay. Any further discussion? None? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimous. Okay, you're done, Miguel.
That's it for resolutions.
Okay. Do you want a 5-minute recess? Okay.
Mr. Benavente, I apologize for the length of my presentation.
By the way, you're not eligible for any subsidy, water bill, or your power.
move on.
The following.
You know what? Doesn't,
Are you asking for a rate increase, John?
doesn't,
Well, yay.
doesn't hurt that.
Yeah, LEAC's a lot easier than that, huh? And now I know why you,
The first one, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Now I know why you haven't changed your base rates since
Okay.
2013. You'd have to do all that crap.
Yeah,
You'd have to do all of that crap. Rate structure, rate design, subsidy, cross
Okay,
subsidy.
let's go.
It's coming.
John? Okay. John B., you're going to start with Resolution 2106, right?
That's correct, Mr.
Okay.
Chair. GPA Resolution 2021-06 and
It's a joint
GWA
resolution also.
Resolution 15 FY 2021. Again, this is the authorizing management to procure merchant services. And actually, Mr. Chair, this resolution was 2021-06 was approved. Previously authorizing both GPA and GWA to proceed with the procurement.
So what's the
Then
amendment?
It was also in that original resolution, GSWA was requested to be included, but then the board asked for a resolution from
Board
the
resolution,
Solid
okay.
Waste Board, which they did. Their resolution 2021-02, authorizing them to join the procurement.
Okay, Commissioner Santos.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? If one commissioner out of the room, but I think he's okay. Can we just hold off for a minute? He'll be right back. Yeah, just bathroom. John, so what is the amendment to
Yeah.
add?
The amendment is to include the GSWA in the procurement process.
Okay.
It'll be a procurement,
But,
yeah,
but I,
for merchant services, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Mr. Chair.
but as you go, I noticed that you're already on the agenda for the PUC on Thursday, right? So the PUC, your approval is going to be done by the PUC for just GPA first, and then GWA, and then,
I guess if this is approved, Mr. Chair, we will remind,
I understand. What I'm trying to say, John, is you're asking for GPA, and Miguel is going to be there for GWA.
that was
And,
approved last board meeting.
yes, no, we approve you folks going
Right,
forward.
that's correct.
Okay, I'm asking, I saw that on the agenda for the PUC. So the solid waste still has to get on their agenda, on the PUC agenda. This doesn't automatically get them on the agenda. Am I right?
I think it could, Mr. Chair. Once this is approved, we will submit it to Attorney Areki, and then he will consider that in the same meeting on Thursday.
Okay, but again, you're going to have a separate, you always get a separate approval from PUC for GPA, a separate approval for GWA, right? And there'll be a
yes,
separate
and-
approval for Guam Solid Waste.
Solid waste, yes.
Okay, okay. Commissioner Mchaku, we're on Resolution 2106. Do you have any questions? Is there a motion?
Yeah,
No, that's right. You move second. No questions? All those in favor? Oops, go ahead.
I just wanted to ask, so
Sure.
how much are we paying for the service now?
John, what's our total? About 1.3 million? 1.29.
1.29 million.
Yeah,
That's it.
that's it? Any further questions, discussions? None? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimous. Next, John.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Resolution 2021-08, as discussed in the work session. This is for the issuance of bond to refund the outstanding revenue bonds. We do have a total of about 285 million, 285.795 million in senior bonds that could be refunded and on a forward basis from the current 5% interest rate to about 3.35% interest rate. The result of this will reduce our annual debt service payments by about 15.3 million. The net present value savings as part of the refunding is about 4.91%. This was part of our plan for the new power plan.
Commissioner Santos?
Yeah, just motion to accept this resolution.
Okay, is there a second? Second, Commissioner Sanchez? Commissioner Sanchez, you have a question?
Yeah, just do we know who will sponsor the legislation?
Not at this time yet.
Not yet? Okay.
Yeah. And again, this is to authorize ourselves to the chairman and the GM to proceed with the, again, for the refunding, petitioning the PUC, submitting the proposed bond funding legislation, which is included, and again, to the legislature, and then for seeking the approval of the governor and GIDA to proceed with the proposed refunding.
Okay.
All the process of bond.
Commissioner Santos?
I just got a clarification.
Sure.
Mr. Chair, colleagues, is I can understand the bond part, but I thought there was some discussion about Barclays basically fronting for us, or whatever that language is. Is that a separate transaction, or is it?
It's included in this.
It's
It's
still
included.
borrowing, right? We're
It's
just,
still borrowing, but it's-
Yeah.
So
we're
we need
not
the
separating it
authorization.
out, just- It's tied in together, no matter how you.
yeah, we need the legislative just permission first to borrow from anybody,
Right.
right? And then this happens to be the vehicle of, recommended by management, and it's a two-step process as you described. And I think, John Kim, please confirm, Citibank had a similar process, but there were some differences that you preferred the Barclays approach versus the Citibank approach?
Yes.
It's better for ratepayers? Can you talk about
Yes,
that?
they're both advanced refunding, which they pretty much hedging or shorting the treasury bonds to fix in the interest rate. Barclays said they'll do it themselves, 5 basis point. Citibank was more like you should go to the market, figure out what they're gonna give you. So but the concept is still refunding and advanced refunding. So that mechanism really hasn't changed.
But with the Barclays proposal, you have the basis points locked in,
Yes.
as opposed to going to the market and you don't know what you're going to get.
Yes.
Okay, got
yes.
it.
One is certain, one is not certain.
But you go to the market next year though, right?
No, this is just for the advanced refunding.
Yeah.
For the to lock in the interest rate.
Right, but next year you gotta pay it off, right? You gotta-
Yes, next year, yes. So
And-
settlement date will be, settlement will be, the earliest we could do is July of next year.
2022.
Yes, so
And
that,
if interest rates are,
Locked
well,
in.
regardless, I mean, you're sort of stuck at this point though, right?
you're locked in.
Whatever the interest rates are, but you're comfortable with the projections that the interest rates next year would be, this is a better, two-step approach is better
Yes.
than trying to go to the market now, which is Citibank's proposal.
the Citibank proposal is to lock in the hedging, not the, going to doing the actual refund. Both do not do actual refunding.
Till next year.
Next year, yeah.
Okay, so there's that interest rate risk regardless.
Yes,
Got
we're
it.
just hedging the interest rate, you know, who's
So
gonna do
it's
it
just
for
who's
us.
buying who's loaning us the money this year?
Barclays.
It's
Yes.
either Barclays from their funds or Citi by going to the market.
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, any further questions? Commissioner Santos?
On the legislation part, I mean, maybe Simon and Mr. do we normally do it on our own, or in this case, do we go to GIDA, who's really the agency that oversees financing of public bonds?
In the past, the CCU has sought legislative, and management has sought legislative approval, because even GIDA can't act without the legislative approval.
No, I'm just saying, do we walk this to GIDA and say, can you help us? Or do we just go to our favorite senator and say?
Yeah. In the past, we've gone directly to the legislature. I mean, that is a tool, but again, you'd have to convince the GIDA board, and I don't know if you have to talk to the governor. Do they want to ask a sponsor to introduce it? You know, we're a going concern. We frequently go to the market. We frequently borrow bonds. So we're used to going to the body directly.
Usually, from my recollection, and during the time, usually we go to the oversight chair, but usually,
So
but
we'll approach
we
Senator
can
Joe.
approach.
Hopefully
We should
he'll consider
approach
it.
several.
If not, there's other senators we could
Yeah.
go to. That's why I asked the
Okay.
question.
Any further discussion? No? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimous. Next, John?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Resolution 2021-09. And this is to procure bulk supply of ultra-low sulfur diesel for the power generation plant, more specifically for PD 8 and 9, after the conversion to ultra-low sulfur diesel, and for Temis, not Temis, but PD unit number 7. Again, this is in preparation for PD 8 and 9 being converted. The tanks will be finished by May of next year, and therefore we need the supply ready to fuel the tanks at that point. So again, we included 7 for getting economies of scale. This would, again, I presented a breakdown of all the different contracts we have for fuel. This will be the 4th major contract for fuel for a 2-year period with 3 one-year options. And there will be one more after this, which will be for the Ukuru power plant. And then we're lining it all up so that we can get the best pricing as we move along and stuff. So again, this is to request your authorization to proceed and go into the PUC and proceed with the process. Gives us time to get it ready. Yeah.
Is there a motion to approve?
Okay,
Okay,
move
is
to
there a
approve
second?
resolution 2021-09 for GPA, Mr. Chairman.
Second by Commissioner Santos. Any further discussion?
This is our fuel contract.
This is our field contract. Yeah. No further discussion. All those who signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimous.
Last resolution, Mr. Chair, 2021-10. Again, this is to authorize us to enter into a month-to-month extension for its professional printing services. As mentioned in the work session, we did go out for bid on this. However, only one bidder came in, which really did not meet the requirements for the printing. And again, this is critical for our invoicing, billing, and other newsletter and other scenarios. So again, we're proceeding for a rebid. In addition to that, this is gives us time, gives us a month-to-month extension to continue services, and whichever comes first, you know, if we get the bid done in 3 months, and that's all the extension will go for. The annual contract is about close to about 400,000 per year, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve? So moved, Commissioner Martinez. Is there a second? Second, Commissioner Santos. Any further discussion? Nope. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimous. And the last one we already
Can we
approved.
debate that one again?
No.
Yep, and yep, I'll pass through that, Mr. Chair. That's been done already. Secondly, just on the GM report, Mr. Chair, there's not much changes at all, except I just wanted to note Friday, May 14 at 10 a.m. at Agatnya is we're going to have the ribbon cutting ceremony for the ESS.
Oh, okay.
Energy storage system, our first battery system that's, you know, working towards our way towards renewables. In addition to that, that has been commissioned since March 1st. It is already April 27, and it provides significant benefits during this period of time. Not
So that's
only-
March 14th?
May 14th.
May 14th, I'm sorry.
At
May
10
14th.
o'clock at the Hagatnya
Substation, which is a Mogmon. Commissioner Santos.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. John, you know, we know this is a great project for our ratepayers, and we're looking to do more with storage. So between now and then, and at that groundbreaking, I know I'll be off island, but just let's think about some outreach to our ratepayers, as to letting them know the benefit of because I think today there was a morning burp at GPA. There was a temporary loss, but again, that battery, I imagine, kicked in because we didn't lose the power, right? And so there are some real benefits emerging from having this battery available for the frequency piece, as well as the smoothing out of the solar piece, which includes dealing with our friends that have their own solar system, right? I mean, that battery covers for all of that. And so if we could, over the next few weeks, talk about how battery storage is going to allow GPA and its ratepayers to do even more solar in the future, which is at the end of the day, solar is the ultimate hedge against oil. And that's why we're doing so much of it. That's why our ratepayers are doing some of it. And this battery is a big piece of that paradigm shift to doing more of our energy from solar. So we could do a real good outreach over the next few months, weeks and months.
We actually do have a video being prepared right now, really, because just to show the value of this.
Yeah, put it on Facebook, YouTube, all that stuff. Let's get it out there.
That's coming up.
So our ratepayers know what they're getting.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, our next meetings are the work session for GWA on May 18th, GPA on May 20th, and our meeting for May will be on the 25th. As a reminder, we have LEAC coming up, but we'll probably deal with that in June, in our June meeting, and we might have an early June meeting.
Yeah, I'll be off island in May.
In May, right?
But I'll
But
be
you'll
here.
be here in-
Everybody return the end of May. I'll be here. When are you doing the LEAC? Oh, maybe I'll come back in July.
No.
I'll be here for the June meeting, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Usually, though, in June, the focus of the meeting is really just the LEAC. We really don't have much
It's
else.
just, I'm very
Okay.
concerned with the rising price of oil.
Yeah, we all are.
Yep. Yes,
Is motion to adjourn? Second?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
All those in favor? Aye. We're
Thank you,
adjourned.
colleagues.
Thank you. I like the encouragement.